Congressman, great to have you with us. And
it's great to be on with you, Lou. Thank you so much for everything you've done.
Well, I appreciate it. And I can definitely say the country owes you greatly, and thanks for all that you do for the country day in and day out. Let me start with the National Security Advisor. Obviously has begun trimming down the National Security Council from, what was it, more than 200 employees. Yeah,
so let me say too, Lou, before we get going, I just heard, and I don't want to, normally you're the one that's breaking news, but talking about Lou, who's just been nominated or has been nominated and is supposed to talk to the Senate. I am hearing now that the president has actually pulled that nomination, so that would be good news. Maybe the president was watching and he just decided to do it on a whim. He was watching you or something.
Well, the fact is, I would certainly, I just can't imagine it would have been advanced at all because of her background. Can you?
But you're right that the questions that the senators could have asked would have been wonderful if they would have actually, followed through and actually were tough and asked the tough questions. But yeah, I think the president has pulled that nomination just here in the breaking in the last few minutes.
Well, that's wonderful, and we appreciate you sharing it here tonight. And I'm sure right now, as I'm speaking, we've got people all over the phones trying to talk to the administration about what is transpiring there, particularly the Treasury Secretary. Let's turn to the what would you call it, downsizing or right-sizing, perhaps, the National Security Council that Robert O'Brien has undertaken.
So roughly, there were like roughly 500 people total in there. Around 250, about half of those were political appointees or so-called policy people. The way I understand it now is finally, with this new National Security Advisor, O'Brien, he's got that number down to about 100. And I think that's a good sign. But I also think he needs to look at the other people that were there, that are kind of the permanent bureaucracy that are there, because look, there's just been way too many leaks. And one of the things that I've been saying is, until you stop the leaks, you just got to get those people as far away from the White House as possible. Just move them out. I'm not saying you got to fire them, but just get them the heck away from the president, because that place leaks like a sieve. And I mean, look, massive leaks. I mean, the leak of, and I'm not saying it came from there. I don't have any evidence that it came from the National Security Council, but look.
Well, I should say, if I may interrupt you, Congressman, that many people say that the primary source of all of the leaks in this administration for the past 3 years has originated in the National Security Council.
And I believe that. I absolutely believe that. That would be the logical place for it. We knew there were a bunch of Obama holdovers in there. I mean, you know the story about how people that were on that team then end up on the House Democrats, Adam Schiff's committee, that end up being part of this impeachment hoax. So there's a whole lot there that we really need to get to the bottom of, and that's why I've said, look, just get them out, quarantine them, because it's putting this presidency in danger. And I think the president now understands that. And I was hoping that John Bolton would have cleaned house. He didn't, but now that O'Brien is, I think it's going to be a big improvement.
Absolutely. Let's turn to the Attorney General for just a moment, because he is making some important statements, as he often does, but acknowledging that the Justice Department has created an intake process for Rudy Giuliani's information on the Ukrainian relationships with the Bidens and the charges there. He says also that he is doing precisely the same thing, offering it up to anyone who has information to come forward. Your thoughts about the Attorney General and what he is doing?
Well, first and foremost, this is not news, okay? The mainstream media is trying to make a big deal about this because they have never wanted to investigate this.
Right.
But what is the truth? The truth is the Department of Justice. Just by its name, it's the Department of Justice. In order to have justice, you have to make sure the people who are citizens of this country have a way to come forward and bring the Department of Justice information. Okay, so this is not a big deal. Now, remember, this is information that we've been looking for, House Republicans have been looking for a long time. Rudy Giuliani, the president's personal attorney, who was looking at Ukraine, we were looking at Ukraine, and lo and behold, we were trying to figure out, where did this black ledger come from that was used to dirty up the Trump campaign? Why did the Ukrainian ambassador in Washington, D.C. say nasty things, a diplomat of all people, say nasty things about candidate Trump at the time? These are questions that need to be answered. And so I think what Attorney General Barr said was just the obvious, which is, yeah, we're the Department of Justice. We take this information in. That's what they're there for. That's what they get paid to do.
They're paid to do so much that they haven't done, though, Congressman, as you well know.
Or they've done things that aren't so, that we need to they need to be investigated for, and are being investigated for,
that aren't legal as well.
Yes, that's also true.
At this point, stand without accountability. Hopefully that will change.
You know, Lou, can I say something too about? We started with James. You talked about James Wolfe. Okay, right. So if you look at James Wolfe. Here's a guy who leaked classified information, as you started out with at the beginning of this segment. Right. He was sleeping with a reporter and leaking information, leaking classified information. He ends up lying to the FBI, okay? And so he gets a couple months in prison. And now you have Roger Stone, who was investigated on what is now a total witch hunt. It was the FISA warrant, that whole process. We knew. And
our viewers are looking at a picture of James Wolfe, the former director of security for the Senate Intelligence Committee.
So think about this. This guy gets a couple months. And look, he should have got a lot more than that, all right? But then today, so Roger Stone, who should have never been investigated in the first place, because the dirty cops knew in January of 17, this is months before Mueller, that there was no collusion between the Russians and the Trump campaign. So this was a bogus investigation from the beginning. So Roger Stone gets dragged through the mud, okay? He gets busted for what? He gets busted for lying to Congress, okay? And if you remember, the Democrats on that committee were doing everything they could to trip him up. Now, look, it's not okay to lie to Congress. It definitely is a problem. It's definitely illegal.
Well, apparently it's not terrible, because James Wolfe only got 2 months.
Well, Wolfe gets 2 months for leaking,
Roger Stone gets 7 to 9 years.
It's exactly. I just wanted to make sure that you understood that tonight with the correlation between Wolfe and Roger Stone. This makes no sense.
And then there's a correlation with General Flynn, whose sentencing has been, by Judge Emmett Sullivan, has been delayed indefinitely. For what reason? Because the Justice Department, again, wants to hang him high. There is something terribly wrong in that Justice Department that this is happening. The president is right. It's just outrageous.
Let me tell you something else that your viewers will be interested in, and you'll be interested, because there's more to come on this. The lawyers that stepped aside today, that busted that made this 7 to 9 year recommendation on the prosecutors. We believe that this is not going to be the only example. We think there's other examples of things that they did during the Mueller investigation that I think you and your listeners and the American people will be very interested to learn in the coming weeks as we start to unpeel the onion of what the Mueller team was really doing. Because I always say this, when Mueller was appointed, we have to ask ourselves, he walks in the door the first day and said, okay, show me all the evidence you got on the Russians. They're like, Bob, sorry, we don't have any Russians here. We don't have any evidence.
Yeah.
So what the hell did they do for 2 years? They set up an obstruction of justice trap, and they went out after a whole bunch of people that now got sentenced. Some already served their time, and I think all of this has to come into question now at this point.
Good for you, Congressman, and I couldn't agree with you more. And I hope that you will be with us throughout the next few weeks as this does, as you say, unfold.
Thank you, Lou.
And again, thanks for all you've done and continue to do.